Hey guys, it's Cliff Ravenscraft. I'm getting ready to go live on Facebook to do an Ask Me Anything about mastermind groups. For the duration of this Facebook Live, you may see me look off camera because I'm actually going to be addressing the folks on the Facebook live stream throughout. So right here, I'm looking to you guys. Now I'm actually looking to the camera for Facebook Live. So with that being said, I'm going live right now. The topic today is Ask Me Anything about mastermind groups. You've probably heard people talk about mastermind groups for the last several years. If you've been in the online business space, entrepreneurial space, they're massively popular. And I'm going to start by sharing my thoughts on mastermind, my experience of mastermind groups, and then I'm going to get into your questions. Real quickly, I just want to say that when I started my own online business, after I left my very successful career in insurance after 12 years to pursue what was a hobby, something that I loved to do so much, and turn that hobby into a full-time career, it was quite a transition. It was a journey to try to figure out, how do you build an online business? I mean, what goes into successfully putting this stuff together? How do you price your products? What products do you create? How do you get new clients? How do you build an audience of people who would love to pay you for what it is that you most want to do, what you're most gifted at? These are things that I struggled with a great deal in the first 2 years of my online business. And specifically in 2008, I went from making, well, let's just say a lot of money as a very successful insurance agent. And at the end of 2008, I had, I guess, reason to celebrate. And the reason why I had reason to celebrate is I was a profitable business from year one. That's what my CPA told me. He goes, congratulations, most brand new businesses do not generate a profit by the end of the year. But here's your profit and loss statement. I've gone through everything. And he says, I want to congratulate you on being profitable in your business efforts in the first year. Not many people do that. Well, here's the thing though. I want to explain to you. First of all, I was generating income during my first year in business, which by the way was in 2008. From January 1st, 2008 through the end of the year, that was my first year owning and operating my own business, being full-time self-employed. I had no business experience prior to that. Well, I had been creating income. I actually was generating income before I went into it full-time, which gave me the confidence that this was the right path for me. But what happened was I was not generating a lot of income, and certainly not enough to call what I was doing a responsible business. And while my accountants / CPA and the IRS, the government, considered my business to be profitable, my own terms, my own definition of profitability, I would not say I had a profitable business. So how is it that the CPA says that I was profitable? That I had my first year as a for-profit business having profit. Well, what happens is that I was generating income. I was doing one-on-one coaching consulting. I was selling equipment. I was making affiliate income. All of those things. Multiple streams of income. I had sponsorship income coming in. I even had donations / contributions coming in from people who were taking advantage of some of the great entertainment-based content that we were doing at the time. And so I had all of these streams of income, and that income was covering all of my business expenses, such as server costs, computer hardware, office supplies, all those miscellaneous things that, actually even paying my CPA, all of his professional fees to do our taxes and stuff like that. That was, the business paid for all of that. And also, I would say, in my opinion, one of the biggest, most important business expenses is health insurance for all of my employees and their family. Now, all of my employees was one, me, myself, and my family. And I'm happy and very proud to tell you that while our health insurance premiums for our family of 5 were pretty high, the reality is that my business generated enough income to even pay those insurance expenses. And then beyond that, beyond the business expenses, well, unfortunately, the only way that I was able to quote unquote be profitable on paper by the end of my first year was due to the fact that for the first 9 months of my business, I did not pay myself a paycheck. So I did not have any payroll expenses for the first 9 months of my year, and that's why I was profitable. I did end up paying myself a little bit of money during the final 3 months of 2008, but boy, was the most difficult time of our lives financially. And here's the thing, I don't regret that year. Boy, I know things today that if I knew the things then that I know now, it would have been a whole different year in 2008. But I struggled with all sorts of problems. Number one, I struggled with just a complete cluelessness as to how much value I had to offer to my clients. Because of my lack of understanding in my value that I offer, I dangerously underpriced the products and services that I offered. My coaching one-on-one was only $50 per hour. I struggled with loneliness. I had people who loved me, who supported me, who were rooting me on, but I didn't have anybody out there who understood exactly what it is that I was doing. I didn't know anybody at the time. I didn't have a network that I have, the network of people and friends that I have today that all have their own online businesses. I didn't have that in 2008. I felt all alone, and while I had some people who would get on the phone and talk to me when I was, when I would have my emotional ups and downs, my mood swings and my paralyzing fear and anxiety, I had people who wanted to encourage me, but they didn't know what kind of advice to give me. When it came down to all of the things that people, all of the stuff that I was reading online about what I should do and the things I needed to do in my business, I had no idea in what order to do them and all of this stuff. And as a result of just all of this stuff and no experience in operating a business, I really struggled in 2008 in my business. 2009, I had a whole year of learning, and 2009 was a little bit better. Actually, it was significantly better. Trust me, 2008 was tough. But even 2009, I still wasn't anywhere near where I was in as far as income is concerned, personal income for our family, as I was in the insurance business. And I'm like, wow, I still need to grow a whole lot. Anyway, everything for me changed in October 2010. Now, by October 2010, I'd already started following a lot of online business owners. I considered them to be mentors of mine. By this time, I was already following Dan Miller from 48 Days to the Work You Love. I was already following Jason Van Orden and Jeremy Franson, and they had their Internet Business Mastery. I was already following some other online entrepreneurial type people, and these folks all seemed to have this common theme that they were really involved in personal and professional development style learning materials. So they were all talking about these books, and so the most popular book I heard every single entrepreneur, everyone that I considered to be my online mentor, every one of them were talking about this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And so I obviously picked up that book, Think and Grow Rich, and I read through it, and it's a very powerful book with lots of powerful principles in them. But one of them really stood out to me, and it was this thing called the Mastermind Principle. And the idea behind this Mastermind Principle is that you connect yourself with a group of other people, like-minded people who are all together for the benefit of each other, that they have collectively decided that we are mutually agreeing that we are all here to help each and every one of us in this group succeed. And as a result of a mastermind relationship, you can benefit from the education, the experience, and even the resources of all the other members of your group. There are examples of Benjamin Franklin, who created his own mastermind group. I think he called it the Junta. And they gathered together in a pub at night. And as a result of that mastermind group, there are today public fire, what do you call them? Firehouses, public libraries, and all of these other big things. Those actually came out of a mastermind group where local business people got together and had these amazing conversations and said they dreamed up wild and crazy things, and together they were able to pull their vast different experiences, vast different educational backgrounds, vast different passions, gifts, and talents, and as a result of pulling those resources all together and meeting consistently in the Junta Mastermind group that Ben Franklin had, they were able to do things collectively that not any single one of them could have ever done in their lifetime had they tried to achieve those things alone. So that's the idea. So I had heard not only my friends out there, or my online mentors, my virtual mentors at the time, they were not only talking about reading the book Think and Grow Rich, but I heard them all talking about their own mastermind groups. And it didn't really occur to me what these were until I read about the mastermind principle in Think and Grow Rich. And so I started hearing people talk about this. I heard people who, some people had been paying a significant amount of money to be a part of a mastermind group. I've heard people who had their own mastermind groups that were free and all of this other stuff. And so I began to study what it might be like to have my own mastermind group. Where do I find a mastermind group? And so I remember it was in October, actually I think it was September 2010, I got a call, or actually email or a call or something, from a guy named Pat Flynn from smartpassiveincome.com. Some of you may have heard of Pat. Anyway, Pat was an A-list, he was actually at that time just becoming what you would call an A-list blogger. He was just coming up really hot in his ability to grow his audience. I mean, it was right at this inflection point for him. And he had been wanting to create a podcast for several years and had struggled with just, pulling the trigger on it. There were a couple technical pieces that he didn't understand. And as a result of that, he says, "Hey, Cliff, I hear you do coaching and consulting. I'd like to hire you to help me get my podcast launched." And so I said, "Hey, I know all about you. I've heard about you. I would be honored. Let's go ahead and put that on the calendar." Pat and I had a couple one-on-one coaching sessions. This, again, probably September 2007. There was this instant rapport between myself and Pat. I mean, it's just like, wow. I don't know if you guys have ever felt it, but it's just like where you feel like, I think that this is not just a business transaction. This isn't just a happening. This isn't just by chance that we've connected at this level. I really believed at that moment, by the end of our first call even, I really believed that God brought Pat Flynn into my life to be a very close personal friend. And I remember sharing that with him. I said, "Pat, if this sounds weird to you and it freaks you out, tell me. Not a big deal. But I really feel like God's brought us together for a reason, and that we're meant to be in a relationship beyond just this client / consultant role here." And I've been hearing about this mastermind principle, and I've been thinking about launching a mastermind group, and I'm going to go out on the edge here and ask you, would you be interested in participating in a mastermind group with me? And he said absolutely. And so in October of 2010, Pat Flynn and I launched, actually I launched it, he was my first member, but it was us together. We launched, it was called the Media Makers Mastermind Group. And shortly after that, we invited a friend of another one of my consulting clients. I invited him into the group, and then he suggested that member suggested another member that was a friend of his, and we We talked about, we conversed about whether or not to bring that person in. We agreed. Then there were 4 of us. And man, we were having the most amazing weekly mastermind group meeting calls. What happened as a direct result of these calls, my business income drastically started going up. And I became more profitable week to week. I'm not kidding you. Every week, my business became more and more profitable as a result of my experience in these weekly mastermind group meetings. And then, obviously, because of that, my month-to-month income had increased drastically. And then by year to year, this is no exaggeration. I have the profit and loss statements for all my years in business. There were multiple years, 3 different years, that my income doubled from the year previous. I'm on record now. I've got 10 years in business experience, owning my own business. And I'm on track. Next year, my business will generate over $500,000 easily. And I'm definitely on track. And I fully anticipate and expect that in 2019, I'll have my first $1 million year in my business. So, I attribute, I would say, almost all of that to my experience in the mastermind group. Now, obviously, for those that understand that I'm a person of faith, I attribute everything that in my life to my relationship with God. But again, I believe that God brought the mastermind group principle into my life. The people that I've been blessed to be in a mastermind relationship with, I believe God orchestrated all of that. So I attribute all of my success to God, and certainly I attribute a ton of success to my wife, who has always supported me and has really thrusted me forward. But it's when it comes to the specific things that I tie the gained clarity that I've received over the years about what I should be focused on, in what order should I focus on them. It's my experience in the mastermind group. I want to give you an example of just what happened with the Media Makers Mastermind group. Our group went really strong for about a year and a half. After about a year and a half, Pat and I have been fully committed to our weekly meetings since October 2010. All right, but after about a year and a half, the other 2 members that were a part of our Media Makers Mastermind group, great people. I still love them today, still have a great, wonderful friendship and relationship with them today. Amazing people. But unfortunately, they began to get to the place where they were no longer as committed to our weekly meetings. Sometimes we would actually cancel at half of our meetings per month. So we might only meet 2 times in a month, or even there was one time where we only met together as a group once per month. It had been going on for a while. And I asked Pat, Pat, I'd like to have a conversation with you and ask you how you feel about, our meetings. Are you okay with us not meeting on a weekly basis? I said, personally, I get so much value out of these meetings that I'm really concerned about the trend in how many meetings that we're skipping. And he's like, dude, I'm totally feeling it as well. And so what happened was, I said, here's the thing. I don't want to go to these other people and the other 2 individuals in the Media Makers group and force them to commit to new things that they weren't asked to commit to before. It was assumed that we would meet weekly, but they took advantage of the fact that we really didn't have any policies set in place. So here's what we decided. I proposed that we disband our group, that we completely shut it down and say that this is officially the end of the Media Makers Mastermind group. But only on the condition that we immediately, instantaneously decide that we are launching a brand new mastermind group at the exact same moment in time that the other one is officially disbanded. And the only thing is with the new group, there's going to be some guidelines. And for anybody who wants to be a part of the new mastermind group that we are forming to replace Media Makers, we're going to set an attendance policy in place. And so we decided to call the new group the Green Room. Pat and I were both very much on the early stages of getting into public speaking. And if you're a public speaker, before you go out on stage, they usually have this room where you can be in private and get prepared to go up on stage. It's called the green room. Now, here's the thing. We determined right then that we would invite anybody who was a part. There was only 2 other people. We would invite the other 2 people who were part of the Media Makers Mastermind group to come to our next Green Room Mastermind call. And we would let them know that we have already shut down. We've decided to disband the Media Makers group. It was only meeting like once a month at that time. And we asked them, I said, listen, we want you to join this new group, but these are the new commitments. And they said, nope, can't commit. And I said, and there was no hard feelings. They said, we completely understand, but just so you know, the old group, it was already kind of disbanded unofficially. We were just meeting every now and then. And they completely understood the way we handled it. It worked flawlessly. And as a result of that, everything was awesome. It has been the most incredible mastermind group experience I've ever had. And we're all very different. I mean, there's no 2 of us who are alike. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. We all have different approaches to how we do things. And we all have different resources available to us. And all of us, every week, pouring into each other, desperately looking for ways of how we can improve the lives of each other person in the group. It is unbelievable what has happened as a result of it. So that is my experience with my own personal mastermind group. Now, I want to tell you, after I take a drink, I want to tell you that I have had experience in other mastermind groups. So I have been a part of other people's masterminds that they've invited me to be a part of. I'm not going to go into details, but some of them were really good experiences. Some of them not so good experiences. There were some where the meetings were once a month. Those never worked for me. Then there were mastermind groups that didn't have regular, consistent, like weekly calls or even monthly calls, but met once a year or twice a year in person. I will tell you that there was definitely value in the actual one-day mastermind events with those people, but it wasn't like you were in a quote-unquote mastermind relationship with those people. Even though we saw each other once a year or twice a year, there wasn't a lot of life done together between the meetings. Now, here's the deal. Our relationships went a little bit deeper each time we did have a full day together, but I was a part of a mastermind group that met that often for 2 years, and today I would still consider those guys just barely more than acquaintances. I would call them friends, but they're not somebody that I feel like I would feel comfortable texting and saying, hey, do you mind if can we get on the phone and talk for 30 minutes? I'd like to ask you some questions based upon your area of expertise. I know that those guys would do it, but it's just that relationship's just not there. But still, the mastermind principle was in effect in those full one-day mastermind gatherings. Now, I also want to tell you that I've had experience in leading one-day mastermind meetings myself. Now, without the intention of this being an ongoing relationship. So in June 2014, I did a next level one-day business mastermind in, I think it was Fort Worth, Texas. It was right at the time when podcast movement was launching, and I knew that people were coming, and so I reserved a conference room the day before the event. And I invited people to pay $1,000 for the day. And I had, I think, 6 people who had paid $1,000 apiece, and we had this gathering. Now, the thing is these people all knew me, but none of them knew each other before that day. And so what happened was I basically gave everybody in that group that day an opportunity to be in a hot seat. Again, I'm going to explain what a hot seat is in just a moment. But so everybody had an opportunity to have a hot seat. And I will tell you this, these people did not know each other before the event, but as a result of that, one person made the decision to go the very next week and go to her employer and say, I'm quitting my job effective, I think it was nearly instantaneously, if it wasn't a very short or brief transitional period. And not only that, but she also ended up actually saying, hey, but I'm creating my own business where I'm going to be doing what I've been doing for you, and I'd like to have you as my client. And of course, they didn't want to lose her at all. Excuse me. They didn't want to lose her at all, but they definitely took her up on her offer. There were some other people who had some really life-changing decisions in that one day. I mean, the power of the mastermind principle at work, even in a one-day event, even if you're not in an ongoing relationship with people, it is extremely powerful. Okay? So I did that in June of 2014. In November 2014, I did another one of those next level one-day business mastermind events. And I invited my friend Ray Edwards to join me for that. And we had, I think, 8 people come out to Colorado Springs, Colorado, where both myself and Ray were talking, we were speaking at the platform event. So again, the day before that conference started, we reserved a hotel conference room and we hosted this event. And again, everybody there knew us, but they did not know each other, and we repeated the whole thing. It was an incredible, life-changing situation for everyone involved. Now, I want to talk to you real quickly about what is a hot seat. Not every mastermind group out there has a hot seat. In fact, by the way, I want to address this before I go into the hot seat. I want to address this one thing. There are some folks out there that have groups that they call mastermind groups, but they are like 100, 150, 200 people in the group. I'm not going to say that can't be considered to be a mastermind group. What I will tell you is this. My idea of a mastermind group is a relatively small group of people. I think they would work best. The smaller, the more impact I believe it can have in the deeper relationships. I think that a group of 5 people or 6 people is incredibly powerful, because that's what I've been in the green room for years. I think a group of 10 people or 12 people. I think of, the example. I believe that the person who had probably the single greatest mastermind group was Jesus, and so he had a mastermind group of 12 people in his group. I think a group of 12 is probably I believe a group of 12 is about the upper end of what I believe could be a really powerful mastermind group, where you can have the mastermind principle in full effect. Okay? All right, so with that out of the way, now I want to talk about mastermind, the hot seats. Not every group has hot seats. Some mastermind groups, what they do is they get together and they will, I don't want to say, this is going to sound like it's almost putting down what they do, and it's not, but it's kind of like a book club. There are some mastermind groups, very powerful mastermind groups, where the mastermind principles are in full effect, where what they do is they choose to, hey, we're going to all read this book. We're going to all agree to read this book. And then what happens is we're going to come together in our meetings and we're going to discuss the principles of that book. We're going to share, somebody's going to give us a book review of this chapter, and we're going to have conversation back and forth on how did that impact us? How does that challenge us? And what have we made any decisions about what we might change in our life or in our business as a result of this? And those are powerful experiences. And by the way, I've done that. Oh, you know what? I forgot to tell you that I used to have a paid mastermind group called the podcast Mastermind, where I had 5 groups of 10 people. Anyway, I don't need to go into that. But the idea here is that is one way that you can do your meetings, and you can have another one. You could have meetings where it's like every week, you just get together and say, hey, what's going on? Does anybody have anything that they need to do? Me, I like a little bit of organization, and so I prefer something that I learned called the hot seat. The hot seat is this, okay? In a hot seat situation, there is either a portion of the meeting or maybe even a majority of the meeting that is devoted to one individual. So let's just say you have a 60-minute meeting. All of my mastermind groups that I host and facilitate in the green room, it's a 60-minute call once a week. And in the green room mastermind, there is practically a 50-minute hot seat, okay? And each week, one person in the group, in the green room, would be in the hot seat. So there's, if I'm this week, Pat will be next week, Leslie Samuel will be the week after Pat, then Mark Mason, then Michael Stelzner, then Ray Edwards. And then after Ray Edwards has been in the hot seat, I'll be in the hot seat the week after that. So in our group, we're each in the hot seat every 6 weeks. And that hot seat is a 50-minute period of time within our current group. And so what happens is, let's just say I'm in the hot seat, okay? So when it's time for the hot seat to begin, everything is devoted to benefiting me during that portion of the meeting. So what I might do is I'm encouraged in the hot seat to give about 5 minutes of context to where I'm looking for help. So I might spend about 5 minutes telling the group about a goal that I want to accomplish. I might spend 5 minutes telling the group about a problem that I've just or an obstacle that I've just come across that I have no idea how to solve. I may come to the group with some kind of personal issue that I'm facing that's distracting me from being able to move forward in my business because I've got this thing on the side, personal, and I just don't know how to handle or even how to think about it, and I'm distracted. So I might spend 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, but usually about 5 minutes explaining where it is that I'm looking for those men or those people. It doesn't have to be men, but where I'm looking for those people to pour into my life, to help me see things that I'm unable to see just from my own limited perspective of where I sit. And so let's just say it's like, guys, I want to become a professional paid speaker, but I don't know where to start. I've got this book called Stand and Deliver by Dale Carnegie, and I'm thinking about some conferences, and just want your guys' opinion on what do you think I could do to establish myself as a paid professional public speaker, and if we're gonna go crazy, I'd like to be called a keynote speaker. And so as a result of having that 5 minutes just explaining what it is that I want to accomplish, then I kind of close my mouth and I let those people start speaking wisdom to me. So Ray might say, let me explain to you how I got into my first paid speaking gig. Somebody else in the group might say, hey, I know you're looking at conferences. I attended this conference. It was amazing. Let me tell you about it. Michael Stelzner says, hey, I bring people to speak at my conferences, and this is what criteria that I know that I'm looking for. And here's something that I know from my experience with other people, what they're looking for when they invite speakers. And so there's all of this. And so by the end of that call, I may have gone into it with, I know I'm going to read this book, and I know that I should probably look at some kind of course, but I have no idea which course to take, what conference to go to, or anything like that. But by the end of my hot seat, by the end of the time where these guys, I have like 18 different things written down in my notes of things that I could pursue that are going to get me closer to my goal. And not only that, oftentimes you might say that, it's like, hey, you know what? I think you would do excellent at speaking at this. Let me introduce you via email to so-and-so. They're hosting an event in 3 weeks and they need somebody. Do you think you could be ready in 3 weeks? Yeah, I guess so. And it's like, okay, cool. And so you might have somebody in the group that can instantly connect you and put you right on the map with a paid speaking gig. That's kind of what can happen in a mastermind call, in a hot seat. So that's what this hot seat is. Now, the overall meeting itself. So if we meet for 1 hour, what do we do with the other 10 minutes if it's a 50-minute hot seat? Well, we open our meetings in the green room with the first 10 minutes devoted to just catching up with each other. But it's very organized as well. And so I require every person in our group to come with a win of the week. We want every meeting to start on a very positive note. We want positive energy. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been times when we've started a meeting and somebody has experienced a significant, major event. You know, if somebody's just lost their mother that's just passed away as a result of cancer, we're not going to have, we're not going to have, we're not going to play Pollyanna, if you will, or whatever. But with the exception of something life-altering like that, something so devastating like that, if somebody's come to our meeting and you just spent the last, before you jumped on the call, the last 3 days you've been dealing with your website being down, you're frustrated with your hosting provider, and your backups weren't there, and you're just really frustrated, you are still required during the first 10 minutes of our call, when it's your turn, to give us a win of the week. And it can't have anything to do with what you're frustrated about. So, and here's the thing. We firmly believe that no matter how many crazy, frustrating things that are going in your life, we still believe there's got to be something you could be thankful for within the last time, since the last time we got together in our weekly call. All right? So we start with a win of the week, and we always do that. Then we have the hot seat, and in the green room, we wrap up at the end of the call. I facilitate the meetings, and for the green room, we wrap up in prayer. Now, that's because we're all believers, and I wouldn't do that if we had people in our group that weren't Christian or whatever. So, but that our group is who it is, and so we close in prayer. So that's what our mastermind meetings look like. Now, I am going to go in to read all of the questions that may have been posted. Real quickly, announcement before I start answering these questions is this. I am getting ready to launch 2 paid mastermind groups. Now, they're specifically targeted for people who are in pursuit of 100% full-time self-employment in an online business. It can be if you happen to still be in the very early stages, you still have a day job, but if you have a day job, there are 2 criteria you must meet to be eligible to even be considered for one of these 2 groups. And that is, number 1, you must have generated already some income from your online business pursuits on the side, at least. Somebody has to have already paid you for some sort of products or services that you've done, whether you've had 2 or 3 coaching clients that have paid you for one-on-one coaching. You must have sold some kind of product or service with the business that you're looking to move into. And also, if you do have that day job, we're only looking for people in this mastermind group for people who are looking for the transition so that they can leave that day job to full-time, 100% full-time self-employment with this online business. That's their end result. That's what they're working towards. All right. Now, also that's one group of people that we're looking for. The second group is somebody who has already left the day job, somebody who is already 100% full-time self-employed. And for those people, obviously you're generating income from products and services. Otherwise, well, let's just to say it's assumed that that's a requirement. And you're generating enough money that you haven't gone and tried to get another day job, so you're 100% full-time self-employed. But if you're making less than $10,000 per month consistently every single month in your business, then this would be perfect for you. Because what I'm looking for is I'm looking for people who are in their online business journey where I was in from 2007 to 2000 through 2008. So I'm looking for people who are definitely looking to leave the day job. They're making some money, but they haven't yet developed everything that's necessary for them to leave the day job. But as soon as the money is there for them to replace that day job income, they're ready to go. All right, so that's group one. Or somebody who is where I was in 2008. They left the day job. They're paying all of the business expenses, but that personal paycheck isn't anywhere near where they need it to be, and so that's who I'm looking for. Now the thing is it is a paid mastermind. Both of these groups are paid mastermind groups. The cost is $1,000 per month, and I am personally facilitating and will be leading the meetings for both of these calls. They'll be on a weekly basis. One group will meet on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. The other group will be for those who have the day job from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. I'm hosting the other group on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you have any interest in joining me for one of those two groups and you fit within the qualifications, I have an application that you can fill out over at podcastanswerman.com/mastermind. podcastanswerman.com/mastermind. Now, with that being said, I am scrolling all the way to the top here, and I'm going to answer all of the questions that have come in. Jonathan Slater says, how do I find a good mastermind group? Well, number one, you could be on the lookout and listen to see. You could post in social media. Hey, is anybody operating a mastermind group that has an opening? If so, can you send me some details? I'd love to learn more about it. And there are groups out there that are free mastermind groups that you don't have to pay anything to be a part of. There are paid mastermind groups. I'm telling you about my paid mastermind groups that I have available. If you fit within one of those, you can go to podcastanswerman.com/mastermind and apply for my group. If you put out in social media, if you email your list and ask if anybody is aware of a mastermind group that exists already that might have an opening, if you put all of that out there and you're not able to find anything, if you are not willing or not able to invest in a paid mastermind group like the one that I'm hosting, or you're not qualified for it, then the next thing I will tell you is create your own. Create your own mastermind group. That's exactly what I did in October 2010 when I asked Pat, do you want to be in a mastermind group with me? And that's how this got started. All right? So how do you find a good mastermind group? Number one, ask everybody you know. Email your email list. Put it on social media. Ask in your Facebook groups. People that that are within the target audience of people you want to mastermind with. And if you don't get a response, consider some paid ones that you might be aware of, like the one that I'm offering. And number three, if all else fails, create your own. And you can create your own. Trust me. In fact, I give everybody all the details, everything you need to know about how to create your own mastermind group. I have an entire podcast episode at podcastanswerman.com/400. podcastanswerman.com/400 will tell you how to create your own mastermind group. Okay. Andrew says, how do you start one from scratch? The answer to that is found at podcastanswerman.com/400. But real quickly, it's as simple as this. You learn about what a mastermind group is. You would probably want to, I would encourage you to listen to all of episode number 400. But even what I've given you today is enough to take exactly what I've shared with you today and go find one or two other people and who you believe would be a great resource for you to mastermind with on a weekly basis, and invite them to be in a mastermind group with you. All right. And by the way, it doesn't have to be in person, face to face. The Green Room Mastermind, we live in all different places throughout the country. So we meet once a week, and we use GoToMeeting. You could use Zoom. You could use Skype. You could do a bunch of different ways to meet. But yeah, just how do you get started from scratch? You just decide what your mastermind group's all about, how you're going to do your meetings, and then invite somebody to join. And just start with 2 or 3 people. Chris says, how do you get past the fear of getting into the wrong mastermind group? Very, very easy. Give the mastermind, if you're invited to be a part of a mastermind group, make sure that you are talking to the person who facilitates or leads that group. Ask them what the commitment level is, what is the investment level. Interview them about their group. But if you get into the wrong group, then you leave it. How do you get past the fear of getting into the wrong group? Just leave it. There's no reason for you to stay. If you go into a group and you find that this is a toxic environment, this is actually, rather than being positive or encouraging or motivational, or if it just seems like this is not what I heard mastermind groups are, then just leave it. All right. So yeah, you get past the fear by just realizing that there are some pretty cruddy mastermind group experiences to be had out there. You may actually end up deciding to join one, but I just want to encourage you, don't spend any of your life in a mastermind group that you determine is not a good fit for you. And so you just leave it and then go look for another one. And if you don't find one that you love, start your own. All right? And I'm just going to answer the next question. How do you get over the fear of the potential that you may have created your own mastermind group that just isn't it's just not the right thing? Real simple. You shut it down. Let's see here. We're going to move on to the next question. Curtis Husta says, what sort of time commitment does a mastermind group require? What sort of commitment do you need to give to truly benefit from it? 1 hour a week. That's it. 1 hour per week. So even when I am not in the hot seat personally, even me as the leader and the facilitator of the group, I send out a broadcast text message to all of the members in my mastermind group and say, hey guys, just a reminder, our call is today. So-and-so's in the hot seat. Here's the link to the call just in case you need it. And that's about as much prep as I need to do. We get on the call. I ask everybody what their wins of the week are. Once they've done their wins of the week, I say, okay, so-and-so, you're in the hot seat. They share their 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 minutes of, telling us what it is that they need feedback on or whatever. We all are then there, for the benefit of that person, pouring in every resource, experience, everything we can do to help that person succeed. That's what we're there for. And then at the end of the call, I close us out in prayer, and then that's the end. That's literally it. Now, if somebody in our group is missing in the green room, I actually have recorded the call. I will then upload the recording into a private shared group in Basecamp that I have with them, so that anybody who missed the call could then listen to the audio later, which we expect our members to do. But 1 hour per week. When I'm in the hot seat, I might spend an extra 5 or 15 minutes before the call, maybe even 30 minutes, outlining some things that I want to share with the group and some specific questions I need answered or something like that. But really, it's about an hour per week is all that's required. Greg says, I'm a newer lover of mastermind groups. What do you believe is the best role for the role, R-O-L-E, so not rule, R-U-L-E, but R-O-L-E, for the leader, facilitator, to play for a successful mastermind? What might be the best resource to learn that approach? And then it's got ... So unfortunately, Facebook doesn't show me the rest of your thing there. So Greg Vance, here's what I can tell you. I think the leader of a group, the best role for them to play is the role of the facilitator. The idea here is that in a mastermind group, there's no one person that is the teacher. In a mastermind group, everybody in that group has value. Every person in that group has their own resources, their own background, their own education, their own thoughts, their own everything, their own gifts, their own talents. Everybody in the group brings something of great and immense value to the table. And I believe every mastermind group must have a facilitator. Somebody who is responsible for starting the group on time. Somebody who's responsible for keeping things on track. Somebody who's responsible for ending that call when that call is scheduled to end, because this is business, folks. We have calls scheduled after that. We've got lunch appointments after that meeting. So somebody does need to be the timekeeper. Somebody does need to facilitate that meeting and keep it organized. If you are in a mastermind group and the person who's leading the group, the call is supposed to start at 11:30 and go to 12:30. If all of a sudden the call, some people are on the call at 11:30, some people don't show up until 11:38, 11:39. The actual official meeting doesn't start until like 11:50. And then all of a sudden, somebody who's in the hot seat, they just really need a lot of advice, and the meeting doesn't end. It's supposed to end at 12:30, but doesn't end until 12:50. Leave that group, unless you're okay with that. But if a call was scheduled to leave at 12:30 or end at 12:30, and if it ever went over 12:30, I would all of a sudden already have a little bit of an issue. But by the way, there's never been a time since October 2010. None of my calls have ever gone past 12:30. It's never happened, or past 1 hour. And that's even when we're talking big things. As the facilitator of the meeting, I'm like, hey guys, we got 5 minutes. We need to table this discussion. If it's important, maybe some folks would agree to have some conversations, schedule some calls immediately afterwards, text each other, set up some one-on-ones, discuss this in between the calls, whatever. But I want to respect everyone's calendar. We all have other scheduled commitments throughout our days. So we're going to wrap things up here in 5 minutes. So that's the role of the facilitator. I do not think that the leader of the group needs to be the teacher role and needs to be answered. So for example, now I will tell you that the people that I have in these groups, I will participate in the facilitation. I will participate in giving feedback to people in the hot seats in my group. I will pour my gifts, my talents, my wisdom, my experience of all of my years of online business into these folks. But here's the thing. I do not believe that I'm the only person to add value. And so as a facilitator, I'm going to allow other people to speak. In fact, when people are asking for advice, if I instantly know exactly what I want to share with those people as a mentor, I'm intentionally going to sit back and let other people provide feedback at first. And I've done this in these one-day mastermind groups. I did this in the past podcast mastermind group that I did years ago. And I can tell you that there are things that I knew, and because I chose as the facilitator to allow other people to step up to the plate first, many of the other people in that group were able to come up with those same things that I knew instantly I wanted to share. And I allowed them to share instead, and that, I think that's the best role, ROLE, for the leader of the group to play. Hope that helps you, Greg. Hazel says, how do you find people for your own group? Is there a prerequisite? I find for some reason many of my peers are not very business in the new economy, so it's hard to relate. Okay, so Hazel, great question. So how do you find the right people for your mastermind group? First of all, you build relationships with folks, all right? People that you want to do life with, people who inspire you, people who motivate you, people who understand what it is that you're trying to achieve and accomplish in life. And so for me, how we've added people for the green room all of these years is I basically had established and built relationships with all of these individuals before I ever invited them into a mastermind relationship, with the exception of Pat Flynn. I told you the story at the beginning. Pat, he and I built, like, the rapport was like instantaneously, and it's like instantaneous, and it's like we knew that this was something that was meant to be. So I encourage you to think about being strategic about establishing relationships and being on the lookout and saying, hey, is this somebody that I would be interested in having a mastermind relationship with? So if you have found that many of your peers are not that business savvy in the new economy, then I encourage you to start looking and establishing and growing relationships with people who are, people who do get it. And I would encourage you to be on the lookout. Is this somebody I would feel comfortable being in a mastermind relationship with? And by the way, a mastermind group can be you and one other person. 2 people is all it takes to be a Pat Flynn and I, we were the Media Makers Mastermind group for weeks before we added anybody else to our group. And it only takes 2 people. So it's just you and one person to start with. And that can be an amazing mastermind experience. All right, so I will just tell you, just be on the lookout. Go participate in online groups, online forums. Go to conferences where other people congregate. Meet people at conferences and talk with them, learn about them, start listening to their podcasts, read their books, buy their products. And if all of a sudden these people are really somebody that you can connect with, then, as you establish a relationship with them, step out and invite them to be in a mastermind relationship with you. And you know what? Will you get people who will say no? Sure. But you know what? You'll never get anybody to say yes unless you go out and do those things and ask. And so I would encourage you to do that. As I wait to see if another question comes out, I'm going to take another drink of water and I'm going to tell you 2 stories. One was back in the Media Maker Mastermind group days. And this was when all 4 of us were on the call. At the time, my rates were $150 an hour for one-on-one coaching and consulting. And so what happened was I went to the group and I said, guys, listen, I am thinking about raising my rates to $200, and I want to know what you guys think about that. And everybody on the call, all 3 other individuals, told me they thought it was a terrible idea. And I'm like, yeah, I was afraid to raise my rates too. They said, no. We think it's a terrible idea to go to $200. You need to double your rates to $300 per hour. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I said, now that's a stretch for me. And they spent the entire hot seat trying to convince me to raise my rates to $300 per hour. But by the end of the call, by the end of the when things were ready to wrap up, they could tell that I just did not have the confidence level for that amount. And so as a result of that, they said, okay, well, we've tried to convince you. Now we're going to revise our recommendation. Go ahead and raise your rates to $200 per hour. You would not be successful at $300 an hour based upon everything that you shared, just because you don't feel that you offer that value. And if you don't feel that you offer that value, if you lack that confidence, you will not be able to get anybody to pay you $300 per hour. So $200 an hour is the right price for you right now. And so I got off that call. I raised my rates to $200 per hour. I did not lose any business at all. In fact, more people ended up hiring me, like percentage-wise, than I did at $150 an hour. And I had so many more new clients. I was still booked full in advance. And while I had a little bit of a bump in increase in income, the $50 an hour, it did not have as big of an impact on that I thought it would. And I had an outside conversation with a friend, and they told me about a book called The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. They told me about a blog post called 7 Reasons Why People Want to the blog post was called Why People Want to Pay You More. 7 Reasons That Doubling Your Rates Doubles Your Success. Which, by the way, if you want to read that, you can go, it's not my blog post, but there's a link to it. If you go to podcastanswerman.com/double your rates, all one word. Anyway, that blog post and the conversation I had with those people, all of a sudden it's like instantly convinced me. It's like, okay, yeah, now I get it. And yes, it took me, I think it was within 10 days of that hot seat that I actually decided to raise my rates to 300. And as a matter of fact, right after I read that blog post, I had an email come in and says, Cliff, I'd love to work with you. How much does it cost? And I said, here's the thing. I recommend that we do four 2-hour calls. I'm $300 per hour. And instantly that person says, great, when can we start? And I'm like, yes. And so that's one. But I want to tell you, there was one particular hot seat. It's not just, you don't just get value when you are in the hot seat, seeking advice, asking the questions and getting the answers from other people. You get benefit by participating in the mastermind meeting when other people are in the hot seat as well. Number one, you get benefit by actually providing value and contribution to the other people. You cannot underestimate the value of you giving to others in the group, helping them make a connection, helping them, change their mindset about what's possible, helping them understand the next right steps, or just telling them the answers to, because of your experience, you know exactly where they need to go to find that resource. There's so much value you get out of just using your experience, your gifts, your talents, your equity of experience in life with these people, your resources. I'm giving that to those other people. There's value in that alone. But there's also the value of being in, having other people in the mastermind group because in their hot seats, because you will be inspired sometimes by the things that are their goals that you never even thought of having as a goal of your own. And a perfect example of this was Pat Flynn. This was way back. This is actually in the Media Makers Mastermind. So Pat Flynn came to our group and he was telling me about this multi-week online group coaching program that he was going to do called the Niche Site Duel or something like that, or a niche site. Anyway, he and a friend of his were going to do this, and he says, we're creating an online discussion forum. So during the forum, students can ask us questions as the facilitators. So we're going to actually be there walking along with them through the process. We have already we're going to create pre-recorded tutorials, and we're going to give them this weekly course outline in a PDF document that's going to tell them in what order to go through. So literally we're mentoring them through this. And once a week, at the end of the week, we're going to host a weekly group coaching call. Yes, people have access to us all week long in the discussion forum, but during the coaching call, people will be there and we're going to answer their questions live. And I'm like, wow, that sounds incredible. And so his question was, hey, I'm thinking about, forum software. Do you have any recommendations? When it comes to hosting these calls, do you have any recommendations? We all had different valuable input and insights to give to him. And that was awesome. But then after the call, I sent Pat a message. I said, hey, can I talk to you? And he says, yeah, sure. So we got on the phone. And I said, Pat, would you be okay if I actually ran with your idea and created a duplicate of what you're doing, but not in niche sites or anything like that? But I think I could create an online program with that same formula for podcasting. I've been teaching people one-on-one. I've been doing webinars. I've been creating all these digital tutorials. And I could just package all these together and create an outline, give people the assignments to go through those, give them a discussion forum to ask me any questions for 4 weeks. And at the end of each week during the 4-week course, I could do a weekly group coaching call. I said, would you mind if I did that? He says, no, I encourage you to. Dude, that's awesome. Go for it. And I said, do you mind if I look at your weekly course outline, the PDF that you've created for your course? He goes, here it is. And he says, feel free to use it if you want. Here's the original if you just want to modify it and put your logo on instead of mine. and just put the links to your tutorials instead of the links to my tutorials. I said, you're sure? You're okay with that? He goes, absolutely. My friends, that was March 2000, actually that was February 2011. And in March 2011, I started podcasting A to Z, which, by the way, from March 2011 to September 2017, I did 32 4-week sessions of podcasting A to Z, helping over actually almost 700 students launch their podcast through that course. I'll just say this, nearly $1 million in sales. I think it's close. It was 822,000 and something. So $822,000 plus in sales over 32 sessions of podcasting A to Z over all these prior years. And all of that came out of a mastermind group meeting hot seat, and it wasn't even mine. So that, my friends, is the power of the mastermind. Real quickly here, one more question came in. Daryl says, what would you do if somebody continuously does not meet their commitment from one hot seat to another? That would be something that we would talk to that person and ask them if they're committed. We would say, hey, what's going on? We would hopefully, first of all, as the facilitator of the group, I personally would make sure that I'm in the interview. I'm making sure that I feel like this person is somebody who is going to take action. There are questions that I will ask in the interview and there are questions that I ask in the application. If you go to podcastanswerman.com/mastermind and look at the application, you'll see it throughout that application. There are things that tell me what you've achieved, where are you at, what are your greatest accomplishments. And then I go into more detail with some questions in the interview. So I make sure that those type of people don't make it into the group. But if something happens and somebody is in the group, everybody in the group is dedicated to the success of every other member in the group. And so we're going to come alongside that person. And during their hot seat, as the facilitator, I say, hey, rather than having a normal hot seat for you, I'd like to open up a conversation. I would actually talk to them privately first. I'd say, I'd like to take your next hot seat, and I'd like to have kind of a hot seat where we, as an entire group, can ask you questions about why you're not taking action on the things that you keep telling us that you're going to take action on. Do you mind if we probe some reasons of why that might be happening? We love you. You say that these things are important to you, and you know what to do. You have all of the resources, but you're just not doing it. How can we help? What can we get to the bottom of this? How can we help you succeed? That's how I would handle that. All right. So there you go. Guys, thank you so much. Just one more quick little mention. If you happen to be on an online business journey, whether or not if you are full-time self-employed in your own online business, you're generating income consistently from your own online products. You don't have a day job. You're full-time self-employed in your own online business. But if you have not yet got to the place where you're consistently, every single month, making a minimum of $10,000 per month, then I want to invite you to join my paid mastermind. And by the way, for those of you who have the day job, you've been building your online business on the side, you've already created a product or service, even if it's just one-on-one coaching at this time, as long as you have been generating some income, you've got clients or students, somebody has been paying you for products or services in the business that you are building. If you happen to have a day job, you're generating some income from that business, and your intention and goal is to leave the day job to become full-time, 100% self-employed as soon as you can ramp up the income so that you can make sure that you're replacing that income and you don't have this massive fallout in your lifestyle and your overall lifestyle for you and your family. If you are one of those two people, I have 2 mastermind groups that I am launching. One of them will be on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I still have 8 spots available for that. I have one group that will meet on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I have 9 spots available for that. Now, those spots will go fast. The investment of this is $1,000 per month. And so you have to also be in a place where financially that's an investment that you can make reasonably. I don't want anybody to go into debt because of this or anything like that. So that'll come up in the interview. But yeah, if you are interested, you're in one of those 2 areas, then head over to podcastanswerman.com/mastermind. Again, that's podcastanswerman.com/mastermind. That's the application to apply for one of these 2 groups that I am personally facilitating. I will be the leader of your mastermind group. I will be pouring into you, investing into you, and during your hot seats in this group. So I would love to be in a mastermind relationship with you if you are in that boat. And for those of you who are not interested in such a mastermind group, again, I encourage you to consider creating your own. You definitely can do it. I did it. I've done it multiple times. And so I encourage you to create your own. And if you need all of the information about how to do so, how to determine who to bring in, who should you invite, how should you invite them, what is the format of the meeting, beyond what I've shared here on this live stream today, head over to podcastanswerman.com/400. podcastanswerman.com/400. That's episode 400 of my podcast, where I actually answer all the questions you need to create your own mastermind group. Guys, with that, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do in life to the next level. Well, there you go, my friends. I am so thankful that you have stuck out for this entire video here that I did. Well, there you go, my friends. That wraps it up for this live stream that I just did for Facebook. I know it was crazy for me to do such a long video where I'm not looking at you directly into this camera. Hope it wasn't too distracting. But again, if you guys are interested, podcastanswerman.com/mastermind to apply for one of my paid mastermind groups. And again, podcastanswerman.com/400 if you want all the details on how to effectively create your own. Until next time, for you guys, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.